we're back in, right?
That's right. Daylover and her second opinion. Because we have to ask, what about Discord?
Yeah. You're not fond of this?
Is anybody?
Yes, me.
So,
Apparently.
please speak up and support her because I have a very big fear she's going to need it. I'm almost like...
Feeling bad for
I almost feel like I might not have to say anything here. I might more have to say, hey, bug off. She's going to get that from 10 different places.
Well, I just like the humor in it, I guess. I like the small, Discord dancing on the table and humor from his side with even the orange joke. I like it. I don't know what's wrong.
I have more like Twilight's reaction to that, like, I guess that's funny, only not quite the way I think I was supposed to, more like the whole inside joke thing. Like, at best I'm like, I guess I get the idea, and at worst I'm like, okay, Mr. Neil DeSeta, the writer, if this is what you think inside jokes are like when they play out, have you ever seen one?
Can you see a joke?
Well, I mean, seeing one unfold, like, okay, people... the stuff they're talking about, it doesn't even sound like it could be funny in context, and they're like, but it was! Oh! Like, I want to see this weekend they spent with Discord. Heck with this story.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like that, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, orange, you glad that, like, that orange sounds vaguely like aren't you? That's a very old joke, and I mean, it's implied that what happened in context made it funnier, but then, like, when we actually see an inside joke that we get, it's explained, like, it's not actually that funny. Like, what are you gonna say next, Piggy? That we'd all have to drink some weird potion for him to break the spell like that? Alright. Like,
I'm just weird, I guess.
that's not even that, like, cleverly phrased on Twilight's part. That's just like, because it's like that thing that happened before. I mean, okay, that is sort of what an inside joke looks like, except nobody would be cracking up laughing at like that. They'd be like, I stand corrected. But,
Sorry.
just like that whole, and I mean, it did, well, as I think it was Calliope Pony brought up, like, yeah, friends normally wouldn't do this, like, be making inside jokes at their friend who doesn't get them because that's rude, like that. Yeah, hey, we had all this fun that you didn't have, eh? Oh, and then when, like, the funny thing is, like, this episode actually, it comes closer than a lot of episodes to latching on to kind of some real character for Twilight and even some interesting stuff that's only been lightly touched upon, like, okay, is she trying to live up to being the princess of friendship and, like, reluctant to just, be their friend with her flaws and with her strengths and flaws like before, how she's trying to, not admit that she's jealous, like, there's actually a couple of moments where you do really feel that, like, when she breaks down, it's like, well, but I wasn't there. I wasn't included. Maybe it's my own fault for having... And I mean, actually, I've had a ton of moments like that one, too. So maybe... so I guess it's my fault that I decided I just had to do that then. Like, you do feel that, but the way they play that, it's like, okay, so what does she do about it? She convinces herself they must all be under a spell, and she has to go get a potion that she... that doesn't try to slip them. She explains her story to their face and expects them to drink it.
I just love it with also the painting that Discord does of Twilight being jealous and all of this. Maybe I have over humor.
Well, I mean, Discord explaining as Bob Ross should have been funny, but they don't go anywhere with that. It's like a reference joke. Actually, in the last video I said, using something as the cake instead of using it to ice the cake. That's how I feel like a lot of these episodes, especially this one, went with the references, like it, or visual humor. It's not like what Twilight has been getting constantly frustrated by Pinkie Pie throughout for trying to figure out how Pinkie Sense works and falling on her face again and again and again until she finally bursts into flames and burns herself out, literally bursts into flames. Like, great, extra mile creativity, that was fun, that was perfect. This, it's like Discord's trying to explain and Bob Ross explained things. Like, that's just like a very thin excuse to pull out the reference. Like, the reference is the point. It doesn't make the point funnier or more entertaining. It basically is the point, like I said, and it's like, that's where it becomes like, yeah, that existed. Thank you for
I just
reminding
think it's
us.
funny. Next.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all. I mean, I couldn't decide if I like hated the jokes or if I was just like, is there something I'm not getting here? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like,
Maybe I just have more. What is that? Dry humor? No.
Well, actually, I can appreciate dry humor. Like, I love Mod
the
Pie,
Mod
that
Pie,
episode.
yeah.
But I don't know. I think, well, on top of that, like, where I might argue that it's, well, try to argue that more just straight up failure. I feel like this episode doesn't go anywhere. Like, it spins its wheels a lot. Like, okay, Twilight tries to recreate the weekend of fun, and then we get a nice long montage of the tablecloth was over here, and the cloud, and the temperature of the soup. Like, okay, there has to be some kind of a purpose. Just, like, things just happening does not constitute a story. Twilight trying to recreate this because she sort of wants to feel like she's included, but wants the excuse that she's recreating it to be the Princess of Friendship. Like, they're not even very clear on what the point of that is, and I mean, I just thought up one, but I mean, like, I'm not latching on to really anything the episode did. I'm latching on to my own, well, hey, what could it be? Or, like, well, Twilight is trying to say she's doing it for a different reason, so what could the real reason be? It's sort of like
I guess it's just to show that even the Princess of Friendship can be jealous about.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the grand point, but I mean, just like the little moments, I feel like there's not enough of a sense of purpose to them. I feel like it's just kind of being into it. But if you think something's funny, that's just about the most subjective thing. Few things are more subjective than comedy, so yeah, if it makes you laugh, there's not much I can say.
No, guess not.
On the other hand, we have the Huffields and the McColts, and it's reversal time.
Why? Because I don't like it? Or what?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I don't know if this episode... I've heard a couple of people say they don't like it. Overall, it seems like to the fandom, this is one that just kind of came and went.
Yeah. Well, I like that it's representing the real life stuff.
Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah, I like that, but else it's like, yeah, I don't know if it's because I've seen it before, or I just don't think anything interesting is happening besides the magic. Yeah. But we agree on that.
Yeah, we brought that up. Okay, yeah, we did have a a preseason game, I guess. And then, right, I don't even know what the equivalent would be in sports. Don't mind me. But no, like, okay, one thing I like about this episode is the new spells from Twilight, like the horn voice
stopping time
louder. Like, okay, this episode was taking some time to be creative that way, but I don't think it was just the magic. I kind of think this episode was having fun like that in pretty much every way. And granted, like, okay, voice magic, that's not like, whoa, so good. Like, actually, I think every little thing she does got that reaction out of me a little bit more than this. So, like, I don't think anything here is fantastic. I think it's, like, the best episode that's like, okay, the plot as this clothesline to string just, like, pure fun on. I think episodes like Make New Friends but Keep Discord, or maybe Mystery on the Friendship Express, although that, I think, there might be even something more to that, but other story. This one, I think, it's kind of like that, except instead of awesome, pure fun, I think it's good. I think I appreciated sitting back and watching this one. Like, I think both the Huffields and the McColts, especially the McColts, are pretty fun. I think, like, yeah, Twilight being overconfident that she solved the friendship problem and looking at her cutie mark for a tomato to appear there. And, I mean, you know, this episode, I mean, it wasn't afraid to be just a little bit freeform, a little bit, like, rough around the edges, I guess. Like, take a time out to see Fluttershy and Twilight pelted with tomatoes, like, stuff like that. The things don't need to be perfect, don't need to be totally neat. It's totally neat and clean, that is. Just kind of taking the time to have fun. I like Fluttershy in this episode. I am Twilight Sparkle, the princess of friendship who has come to solve your problem. I'm Fluttershy, and I'm here too.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of funny, but yeah, I just feel like it, drags on a little bit too much. I also guess it's because I've seen it done before, both in, I don't know if you know this series, it's called the Lucky Luke. It's a Danish stuff, but there they also have the Hatfields and McCalls as battle, and also with Asterix and Obelix. They also had the story, and one more show I can't remember, but where I've seen it, Transformers also have kind of, but they're not called the Hatfields and McCalls, of course. But yeah, you can argue that the Autobots and the Decepticons are a representation of those two.
Yeah, that might be going on a little bit.
Yeah, they're a little off the line. Yeah, I know, but I still feel like some of it is good, but I also feel like with it's actually the animals that handles everything. Twilight and
well, that reveal the truth to
doesn't
Fluttershy. They provide
anything.
The key.
Yeah.
Twilight does freeze the entire battle, and yeah, I mean, granted, yeah, Fluttershy was probably the key player here, but I mean, I could see how this wouldn't have happened without Twilight.
Yeah, well.
But if you don't know, by the way, Asterix and Obelix. Obelix, is that how you say it?
Obelix.
Okay, yeah, that French cartoon about these two guys back when France was Gaul and it was resisting the invasion of Julius Caesar. And I didn't read up on how that ended. I'm going to assume that Gaul was not successful in fending them off, so of all things too.
In the cartoons, Gaul is actually fending them off.
Yeah, well.
But in real life, they are not successful, yeah. Yes. And the Lucky Luke is Danish stuff about this man that is a cowboy that is faster than his own shadow shooting.
Yeah. So, Asterix is the brave little hero who gains strength from super potion, and his sidekick is this dim-witted big guy who just has super strength all the time.
Yeah, he fell in the pot with the...
Yeah, when he was a baby, so he has permanent super strength.
Super strength.
Yeah, but Asterix is the hero.
What was next? It was not supposed to be extra. I know what we're talking about.
I'm just all proud of myself for knowing that one from a couple semesters of French class. But yeah, I guess where we disagree on Hatfields and McCalls is just for me the gags and the Twilight and Fluttershy trying to solve just the entertainment factor the whole time is enough for me to keep it going, and not so much for you.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think it's a little boring.
Okay, well, and now I think we're gonna swing back around Applejack's Day Off. I don't like it.
I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see what I just don't like that. It's so boring.
And again,
and it's another. Well, actually, this one.
On the other side.
It's like What About Discord. It feels a lot like What About Discord to me, actually, and it has the same writer on it. Although this time he apparently only came up with the story, whereas it was written out by those two brothers, I guess, named Fox, last name Fox, that is, and I mean, they were new at the time, so I could kind of see them. I mean, and actually, I thought they did a great job writing Gift of Maud Pie with Josh Haber helping to think up the story. But okay, I could see how maybe they were deferring to longer-running writers. Because I mean, it feel like normally I'd say, okay, the story is just that. How you write it out is important. But it is like it feels just like at its core, just like a what about Discord sort of thing, just something that just jogs in place a lot, just sort of spins its wheels through nothing. Okay, Applejack thinks sees the steam room going wrong, and sees the pipe, and follows it. Like, okay, so the pipes are taking all the steam. We have to see her follow it down the hallway, and down the stairs, and down the hallway, and down the cellarway.
It's actually a reference to something. Horror movie.
So I don't think, like, there's not really anything that ominous going on there. It just comes, like, to me it came across more like sort of that picture book where it's like, say, where were the pipes going? Where did the... Kind of like, are you my mother? Say, where was the snort going? It was going somewhere to the tree. Like, where was it going? To the washroom. The towels were taking the steam. Or heck, it feels like we need to follow the towels all the way back up to the steam room so that Applejack can explain to us what we just... Like, okay, I know this is a kid's show, but you're not writing for 3-year-olds here explicit. Like, I mean, and 3-year-olds and no higher. Like, okay, we are writing a show so people who don't know how to pay attention can grasp the concept of understanding something. Literally every other episode was not about that. This is not the Teletubbies for slow kids.
And again, I think that we disagree on the humor because I really like both the start with her taking care of the animals, doing the chicken dance, and all of this stuff, and the Rarity being in the steaming room, being all wrinkled, and then we come to this with her. Even though that she has a day off, she still does work with finding out what is wrong in the the place where they have steam and stuff like that. I just feel like, I can see myself in this situation. Being like, I grow up at the farm, so I know a lot of this stuff. I know that it's unnecessary with all of the stuff that she does, but trust me, in the mornings out in the field where you're living at a farm, you have to feed the chickens, take care of the pigs, and, put animals in shelter and all of this stuff, and it takes a lot of time. And her not having time to be with her friends, even if she has a day off, I just feel like it is a little funny, but it reminds me a little much to myself.
Okay, well, the thing about, like, her going around the pigs and, like, doing the unnecessary stuff, like, to me, that's where it most reminds me of What About Discord, because, like, okay, it's trying to do an impression of somebody making something more complicated than it needs to be, just like, What About Discord, trying to do an impression of Inside Jokes, and again, I'm like, really, that's what you think it looks like? Almost like he, like, figured, okay, that's what I want to do an episode about. But, okay, when was the last time I saw something like that happen? It was, I'll just make something up, and then, I mean, like, I'm watching Applejack, I'm like, okay, who is that dense? Like, and I mean, actually, I've had somebody else who lived on a farm saying, maybe not so far-fetched as you'd think, but I mean, like, okay, you felt the need to go up to your pigs and go,
yeah, well, there's special ways to feed animals, but I will say, like, the episodes take it a little, what is that, too literally or too far with the stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, sorry, I thought
you
that.
So, the next.
What was the rest?
It was more like, I like that the main six actually helps Applejack so she can get more time to with her friends, and makes like she realizes, like, she needs time to herself as well. I don't think that she had a day off in her life before that.
Yeah, I mean,
I can relate.
I mean, like, the idea's there, and, and I really appreciate episodes that feel like they have their fingers, like, just right on the pulse of situations like this. So, I mean, in fact, like Winter Wrap Up is one of my favorites with Twilight. Just feeling the need to help and wanting to do it the way she's supposed to do it, like wanting to feel like she can fit in there. And I mean, and you know, there's a lot of cartoonish things in there, but I mean, the way Twilight feels, trying to do all of this stuff and getting heckled and pressing on, more determined than ever, and then finally even resorting to fudging it a little bit and using magic, and then making it worse and striking out hardcore. Like, okay, that all works for me. The Neil DeSetto approach with the what about Discord or Applejack's Day Off. I'm still going to blame him for Applejack's Day Off. His fingerprints are all over it. You're gonna have to work hard to convince me that it's not his fault. And I feel like he's trying to, but it's like, I don't know, a third grader writing a story and being told that you're supposed to make it, like a kid writing a story and being told that you're supposed to make it relatable so they know what they're supposed to do in theory, but when in practice it's like, okay, so then she went to the store for the first time, just like how it is when you go to the store for the first time, and she felt like it was important, and the store owner said, wow, you're important today, and it's like, okay, well, good first attempt, but I mean, and so that's what it feels like I'm watching, and it spends a lot of time just sort of spinning its wheels trying to flesh that out, and I'm like, okay, I'll just take my day off now. So, maybe I'm a bit harsh, but not my favorite. Okay, and last up on these severe disagreements, we go to Viva Las Pegasus.
Yeah, because you like that.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite episodes of season 6.
Yeah, and I hate it.
I think the fan base comes down somewhere more in the middle, but you want to go first or second?
I can't go second, can I? That's your job.
Fine.
Well, the reason I don't like it is because it portrays Elvis wrongly. I know it's supposed to be humorous and stuff like that, but him in real life was a nice guy. We both agree.
He was a generous man.
Yeah, generous man, and he did not do stuff like this to other ones, as far as I am knowing of. But then you said he had this manager that was evil, but then I was like, why don't you do it with the manager? But then we talked about it was almost like the Rara episode. They could not do that again, and there I'm like, why not? Because I feel like it's what is that? This portraying a person that is not there no more. So if a known person died and you are portraying them wrong, I don't like stuff like that, because I would hate it if it happened to me. I know that I'm not a known person, but yeah, you get
300 subscribers.
I just wish that it would have been a little, maybe not that much on the nose. Is that correct to say with the Elvis stuff? It's fine that he's trying to have the same look and same voice and stuff like that, but then you should portray the person or the character as he is in real life, not trying to skewer and make it something that he's not. Yeah, I don't like that at all. I like Flim and Flam in this episode. I think they're funny, and I think they do what you're expecting them to do. And I also like Applejack in this episode because she's not forgiving them at the first. She needs to have some meat through the story, and she goes along with the Gladmain stuff and them putting it on the intercom and stuff like that. I think that is clever, but still I don't like that they are portraying someone that doesn't like he doesn't. I don't think he. Well, he doesn't mind now because he's gone, but I don't like, speaking ill of the dead.
Deceased. Okay. Well, I will say, like, first of all, this isn't like Cinderella Man with, I don't know, saying Max Bear, the opponent, the heartless brute who killed 2 men and is now coming for Cinderella Man, when in fact the real Max Bear was a very feeling man who was beside himself when his knockout punch actually killed someone and, like, stayed up all night in the hospital with his wife and family trying to, like, I mean, there's no confusion to be had here. Elvis will always be awesome. Like, everybody knows that he was the king of rock and roll and is, like, yeah, he, like, uses mannerisms for whatever. Elvis is always going to be cool, and I think everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. And, like, second of all, I will say that this was just using a couple of his mannerisms because Elvis, like, because he's so iconic, he's a character that a lot of people, like, emulate, that he, heck, somebody in the WWE had a gimmick of being an evil Elvis impersonator who thought they were better than Elvis, but while still just kind of copying all of his mannerisms. But, I mean, yeah, Johnny Bravo is kind of Elvis-like, and he's not really good or bad, he's just a knucklehead. But, it's like, I mean, so yeah, I think that, this isn't so much supposed to represent Elvis, it's just, like, supposed to be, ponyfy. I mean, granted, they do pony versions of a lot of celebrities, but I mean, yeah, Gladmane, like, he's not...
And, of course, cheese sandwich.
Yeah. Or, heck, we've had a Gordon Ramsay pony.
Yes.
But Gladmane, I mean, he's not a...
Points for that.
He's not an exact Elvis. I mean, he doesn't sing. His hair is a different color. I mean, I think that it's more using, like, the mannerisms to, yeah.
Yeah, but I still don't like it.
Evoking similar stuff. And yeah, third of all, I think, as people have pointed out, if this jabs at anyone, it's Elvis's manager, the Colonel, who I think was
but then they could
a similar
have called
voice
him
in a
the
lot of ways.
Colonel.
Well, they didn't call him Elvis either. They just called him
Gladmane.
Yeah.
What is Elvis's other stage name? Do you know that?
So I didn't. You might. This is going to be really sad if I just got out Elvis knowledge by a Danish woman. But
I will spare you. You can look it up after.
Well, I'm going to assume that it's Gladmane.
Well, something. If it's not Maine, what is it for?
Glad hair. That's not a name.
You're close.
Glad do. Glad. I don't know, what is it?
You'll not get it. We'll find it
Glad
afterwards.
perm.
Close. Very close.
I'm sure you'll put it in the comments section, but oi. Elvis. But I mean, I think it's just kind of using his mannerisms to create their own character, and I mean, I don't think anybody would honestly take this as
what
a jab at Elvis.
What about the Rara pony? If she was portrayed like badly.
Well, who is she a reference to? I mean, she's
Lady
voiced by
Gaga.
Lena Hall. Sort of.
Come on, sorry, Esther.
I mean,
Rara, ooh la la.
Come on. I mean, like that.
Well, straw and everything.
Well, I mean, Rara's first song is not 100 miles removed from a Lady Gaga song, but I mean, they actually do say, okay, that's not wrong. That's not what you should be like. That's relying on the gimmick too much. So, I mean, heck, you could argue if that's the route you're going to go with that, you could argue that is just as much of a Lady Gaga bash.
Okay, what about if Cheese Sandwich was portrayed wrong?
Cheese Sandwich just is Weird Al Yankovic,
yes,
voiced by Weird Al Yankovic.
If they took him and they portrayed him wrong, they took other, want to.
Well, that just would have been Weird Al giving them permission to do that because he's the character.
But what if he did
would have
not
been like,
give them permission?
hey, I get to be a villain this time.
We don't know if Elvis have given permission to this. I don't think that he has.
Well, I mean, if they...
Or family.
Okay, well, first of all, I feel like they'd be going after the Honky Tonk Man from the WWE before they went after this. But, okay, I'll decide. If, like, they created a pony who does parody songs and plays the accordion and is the bad guy, I mean...
Well, he kind of is, but yeah.
Well, he's the antagonist. But, I mean, like, okay, for it to be, like, something I feel like that Weird Al should... consider being mad at. I'm Weird Al, he's probably above being mad at stuff like that, but if he, like, something that he was meant to see as a jab, I feel like it would have to talk about something specific about him, like it would have to insult making parodies in some way, or insult being weird in some way, like not just he happens to have his mannerisms and he does stuff
but
completely
again,
different.
both Lady Gaga and the other one is still alive, so they can be like, oh, this is not something we want. Elvis can't do that. And I don't think that he deserves this, even though that you are like, oh, everybody knows that he is the king of rock, and everybody knows that he's a good guy. Well,
yeah, and I mean, it's hard to say, okay, what does he not deserve? I mean, I feel like all this is going to do is kind of keep his memory going, like don't forget that he's a thing, because I mean, like that
they could have done it better then they could have made him maybe collaborate with the Slim and Flam brothers, or did something else with
have them do that, because
Viva Las Pegasus.
Well, I mean, I think Gladmane, for just as a character on his own, is utilized very well, like the guy who sets himself up as that friend who's so supportive you don't even realize it's an abusive relationship, and how the mystery is, that sun is shining right now. Okay, I'll just give myself a bright stripe there on my head, and
we'll call it that.
Yeah, it's all right, but
that's not
keep
helping.
yourself in screen. But
that's right.
Yeah. But
want to switch places.
Okay. But I mean, it's not like they. Well, no, I skipped over something. Yeah, I think the whole like the mystery is just subtle enough to keep you guessing. I think it's a well-told story, and Gladmane himself, like I think it's really cool to see Elvis's mannerisms on a pony. But like the fact that he turns out to be a bad guy, I don't really take as a diss. I just like, because I mean the ways in which he's a bad guy really have nothing to do with Elvis. He's a bad guy who happens to be entertaining in the way that Elvis was.
Yeah. I get it.
I mean, I could see that, like, okay, no, you're making excuses for it. You should respect.
Yeah, you should respect the.
Like this, but I mean, like.
People. I guess.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, I guess I just. Well, I don't know how other people are gonna take it. I mean, like what I felt while watching this was both joy at seeing some of the things I like about Elvis on a character, and interest in what the plot was doing with him. Like I didn't feel like insult on someone else's behalf, and which I felt before, and a few times, like someone I mean, I'm thinking of examples that might almost be, controversial to cite, but like somebody insulting somebody else and me being like, oh, you want to go there, when, you have the right to feel like such a hot shot, but I mean, in this case, I didn't really see it, like, nothing, like, I didn't feel any sort of mean spirit about it. I just, sort of felt like interest in the villain plot that was...
But before we bore every pony, is there anything else?
Well, we could run through the episodes that are mild disagreements at point. I love Mystery on the Friendship Express, and you're...
Little, like, meh on it, I
don't know, that episode's like Pinky's World to me, like, a conflict that involves entirely around desserts, and delicious sounding desserts. I have to say, fantastic Make You Hungry episode. fantastic, like, Pinkie Pie logic, and, I mean, everybody almost got offended on Pinkie's behalf. It's completely a bad representation of Pinkie, like, they had this need for the episode to acknowledge her as smart when, I mean, she'd done illogical things before, like, I mean, it's the episodes. They hadn't actually gone the route, I think, of showing, like, her savant side. Well, I mean, in some ways, but yeah, I think that was more the fans trying to take, ownership of Pinkie there. I don't feel that and heck, Pinkie Pie does turn out to be a good detective once she gets the right formula, but I mean, just like, okay, and that's the only thing I think that's even worth giving pause to debate about, because just, everything about this one, the references that, based on the Pinkie Pie logic, just like, they're having a blast with everything that goes on in her head here, the James Bond scene, and the...
Yeah, I think that's funny too.
If you were tied to the railroad tracks, how are you now here? Like,
these small ones, I will agree with, that they're funny too, but I just think, like, some of it drags too long, I guess.
Oh, I was never getting even a little bit... Stop! Don't go near that cake, thief! Stop, thief! Are you okay, thief? And then... And what else? And everyone... And, the friends would never steal Pinkie's cake. I mean, it's kind of an over-the-top episode to go with the fact that it's, a Pinkie's, like I said, it's like a Pinkie's World episode. Everything it's a conflict Pinkie would have with the stakes and the weight a Pinkie Pie conflict would have. Like, just, it's all totally harmless in the long run, but it's sure something to dive into.
Just wanted to see what was next.
Well, that would be the Saddle Row Review. And believe it or not, I think I'm good cop here.
I don't even remember it.
Rarity opening her new boutique and, like, interviewing the friends while they're the Spoon Pony and Sweep and Vinyl Scratch has a...
The Sweep is I think one of the things I think is funny, but elsewise of it I don't, like, care for it that much.
I mean, like, a lot of people seem to think it was downright hilarious and just... And granted, I like that an episode like this got that reaction, like, where it has the potential to be a series grade, like, not for, like, it's just laying on the melodrama, and not for, laying on the gimmicks, like, ooh, I bet you never thought you'd see, Nightmare Moon versus Nightmare Celestia, or, what, like, I bet you...
saw that, Daybreaker.
Just like, but I mean, it's not a gimmick kind of thing, or, oh, look, this villain can, now we, see what would happen if all the villains took over Equestria. Isn't that so cool? Like, no, it's gets such a reputation because of the way of how creatively it just, like, lets us sit back and spend time with these characters and seeing all of their quirks and their good sides and their bad sides, and how they rib each other even behind each other's backs sometimes, and just how they work together, how they play off each other, how they deal with little conflicts. I mean, okay, and I love that this episode became big for that. I think it only did a good job at that. Like, you think it did a boring job at it, evidently.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, like, some of the humor is pretty cheesy. The example I cited was Rainbow Dash. I can't tell you the first thing about clothes. Pretty much all I can do is look at something, meme face, and tell you if it's clothes or not. This chair, not clothes. Dumb. And that's that's far from the only one. There are plenty of moments like that. The thing with the good and evil Rarity on Pinkie Pie's shoulders, I mean, I think that they stopped thinking of, I think they did everything they wanted to do with that gag the second the good and evil Rarity appeared. Like, they just sort of, they talk about nothing for a minute. Well, I don't even know how one's supposed to be the good and evil. That gag just leaves me scratching my head. Like, if you don't remember, at first Evil Rarity tells Pinkie Pie to, go for it, let the DJ stay, go out and party. The good one agrees with her, I guess. And then one of them says, or the good one, I guess, says, Pinky, I would never say that. And then the other one shrugs and disappears. Like, what was the point of that?
I don't know.
And it's a fun structure, and like the whole thing, you sit back, you watch all the fun silliness go by. Nothing really stands out as like a Hail Mary moment. I mean, granted, there are a couple of offhand gags that are brilliant, like one of Pinkie Pie's clones still being out there.
Yeah.
Love that, but I mean, I don't know if there's anything to go head over heels for there. There's not like some super clevy. That's a word now, trademark. But super clever gag that's like, okay, that just like has me busting a gut. But I mean, it's like, what were you?
I was thinking about a Donald Duck episode where he has a good and evil side that wants him. The evil side wants him to smoke, and the good side is trying to tell him not to. That is the only thing I can think of.
Cow and chicken did it. It's overdue in My Little Pony. Get our smoking conflict in here. Oy.
So I'm guessing they're agreeing on smoking or what? That's not good. Next.
Okay. But yeah. Saddle Row review, fun silliness. I think it's only good. She thinks lame. Boring. So, and the other one is Spice Up Your Life.
Yay!
This one actually there might be enough here for a full-scale argument, because
even
though, like, I technically approve of this episode. I think that Coriander and Saffron Masala, if that's how you say it, Marcella, whatever, I think they're fun new characters. I think that, I think I've seen something like this done in some other story, but I mean...
Ratatouille.
No, Ratatouille did it much, much better. Like, but yeah, like this whole, put the critic in their place. Like, hey, a critic can't tell you what to like, or can't tell you that you have no worth, but taking it to the straw man kind of point. And yeah, I realize that I resemble that remark, and it's hard not to seem unbiased, but I mean, like, I realize that critics have to take their lumps sometimes. It can be a lot easier to sit back and point out the good and the bad of something than to actually create it and try to, like, work out how to make it as good and as true to you as it possibly can be. That's fair, although, the internet and video reviews, critics take their share of lumps too these days. But I mean, okay, no, I realize that there is a point to be made that, criticism, even when you're not intending it to be hurtful or you're just going through the motions, it can be hurtful. It's true. There is a point to be made there. This episode, I feel like, just went out and set up a straw man so that this spidery hag of a critic with the evil smile and the wrinkly skin, and who only likes the stereotypical fancy frou-frou tiny dishes. It's just like, it's totally stacking the deck to make it so that, like, literally everyone disagrees with her. Nobody on screen ever backs her up as qualified to do this. Everybody feels the need to listen to her because something about how she grew up eating fancy food. Okay, there's a lot of people that applies to. This would not happen. This does not happen. One critic never... I'm sure, never say never. There's always some sort of exception. You know what? Go ahead. Try to find an exception for me. I'll be happy to tell you how it's not the same, because this was ridiculous. One critic says that restaurants should switch over to this food that has like, she demands her food be bland enough. Okay, there is such a thing as bad critics. Like, there are your Armand Whites out there who say things that are useful to pretty much no one except the people who happen to agree with you that time, and then when you say something dumb the next time, you're no good to them either. Like, I mean, yeah, there are bad critics. There are not critics who convince an entire town to change over to what the one person thinks by writing a bad review. If a restaurant switched over to food that nobody liked, then whereas before they liked it better, then the customers would stop going there and hit up the restaurants they still liked. The public does not have a hard time backhanding critics. Like, what's actually at the core of this story is, if you strip away all the attempts to stack the deck against Zesty, is Pinkie Pie and Rarity disagreeing with a critic. Okay, that's just their opinion. If it hadn't just so happened that every single person in the world disagrees with this critic, then it's a difference of opinion conflict. That's, okay, that doesn't mean they're wrong, that doesn't mean Zesty's wrong, it's just something that happens sometime. This episode doesn't want that to be the truth, it wants it to be the case that, alright, yeah, critics are never worth paying attention to because this episode, well, because the guy writing this resembles the restaurateurs in this. He wants it to be that everything, like, okay, everything I do is okay because it's personal to me, and it's like, okay, well, the thing about that is, I mean, episodes are products, restaurants are products, you know, okay, critics are there to, one, help you maybe think ahead of time if you have a lot to choose between, like, okay, well, what fits me the best, and okay, if you're, granted, if you just look at a 5-star review and say, oh, that's for me, it has 5 stars, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to, I mean, they're not just there so you can be in the right or whatever. They're there to help you figure out why you love what you love, you know, or they're there to help you explore your tastes a little bit, to think about, okay, these are the kinds of things this restaurant does, like they, I don't know, they make really good and tender meat. Well, yeah, I'm a big fan of, I'm a big carnivore. That sounds like me. Or okay, they, yeah, really make a great soup with lots of veggies and stuff. Forget it, I don't like cauliflower necks, like that. And but yeah, so this is like, I think, kills all the nuance and goes for the straw man approach. And you know, one thing I actually put in my review was a quote from Roger Ebert, like, from his review of My Mother's Castle, which is actually a sort of the second part of a sort of series, sort of one movie that's 2 parts. Anyway, My Father's Glory, My Mother's Castle, and he wrote in it, you know, funny, actually, there's something I didn't expect after my 4-star review of My Father's Glory. People thanked me for my review of it. They said it wasn't the kind of film that they normally would have attended, but after I wrote that, they went because they were intrigued and they were glad they did. And I'm like,
I have to watch it now, I guess.
It's a French movie, in fact, but
oh, great.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, there's another side to the story. Sometimes critics, you know, they I mean, there's such a thing as positive reviews. In fact, I think critics do this because they want to find things they like, because they like thinking about what they like. I mean, there's your Rex Reeds that just kind of get off on being douchebags, but I mean, that's not why the job exists. So it doesn't exist so people can be douchebags. It exists so they can explore this thing that fascinates them. And I mean, you know, sometimes they find the good stuff before you do. You know, sometimes good reviews can draw at least some attention to something. So, and ironically, this guy did a really good job tackling differing opinions in the very next episode, Stranger Than Fan Fiction. So, yeah, what happened? I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe he's, like, the fact that Quibble Pants is more of a fan than he is an actual critic, like, maybe that made this guy feel like he had to have less an allergic reaction to the concept, but, okay, so that's, of course, everything you need to hear, because I have covered it in perfect detail, and we can just skip on to the... Okay, what do you think?
Well, I really liked it. I think maybe I can relate a little bit more to the episode also, because I know that it's not as good as Ratatouille, but I still get the vibe from that. Also, like, of course, like the Gordon Ramsay pony that is in. I'm sorry, I like Gordon Ramsay. But yeah, I just, the thing with Pinkie Pie finding the restaurant that is off menu and going in there. First, I was like, yeah, you should not do that because, like, health inspections and stuff like that, there's a reason why we're giving it stars and health codes and all of this.
It is two different things.
Yeah. But imagine, like, her being one of these health inspectors. That was actually what I thought that she was first, and finding out that she was a critic also. Maybe she was going around at the restaurants and being like, it does not have the health, criteria to, it have to be like this bland and small portions and fine and clean cut. Yeah, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. But in my mind I was like, okay, I can go to that length for her because she really feels like this stuck up critic. As you said, there is something like a bad critic, and I really feel like she represents all of this. But also, like, after they end the episode, there's nothing with new restaurants getting stars or new restaurants opening, is there?
Well, they just kind of stop at it, like, hey, we rallied the entire town behind us, the evil Zesty is defeated.
Yeah. And I was just like thinking, if she were that health inspector, maybe it was not a good choice to...
Yeah, well, if she were the health inspector, that would have been different. But
yeah, it would have been different. But I'm also like thinking, like, if she's... you said that critics don't change...
one critic doesn't. That's not
true for me.
I mean, some people, like, don't get me wrong, like, if the Rotten Tomatoes scores, some people might
I don't
yield to that well, stuff like that. I'm saying, sometimes people might yield to opinions that when they don't have strong feelings themselves, or they're not sure themselves, or they haven't tried it themselves to feel more secure. It happens, I get it, but I mean, I actually kind of hate the moment where Pinky's like, maybe instead of trusting some pony else's hooves, I should pick, like, nope, forget it. That's the same thing that, like, you see that on, what I said, the tomato meter, every Rotten Tomatoes movie with a rotten score that, there's always some, I don't know, fanboy who's, like, who doesn't like the fact that they're in the minority, and it's like, what do you need them for? Just trust your own. So, okay, I'm gonna go around seeing every movie, and, like, forget it, pal, like I said, I'm gonna use that to make an educated guess on what I might like, and I mean, I'm not gonna, it's not, to me at least, it's not a matter of, okay, 5 stars, I'm there, 3 stars, I'm not. It's like, okay, so they're saying I'm gonna like it, or I might even really like it if I have that kind of taste, and the fact that, like, okay, no matter what, there's always, like, it's literally impossible to agree on every single thing. No matter what, even if it's what you'd say is the worst movie in the world, there are going to be people that like it. That's okay. That sometimes your audience is just a small one, but no, that does not mean that the majority of critics were wrong to give it a thumbs down, or that you should not trust somebody else's taste. Like, no, that means that it didn't work out for you that time, or that, heck, maybe you should have realized that this was something that you like, that you're just a little bit of an odd duck for liking, that not many people like. And hey, that's okay too. I mean, Jim Carrey can do it for me even when I can recognize full well that most people are not going to approve. I mean, it happened. It's not a question of, don't listen to reviews, because then you're just letting someone else's tastes replace your own. Like, no, okay, there's a lot of subjects that, or a lot of purposes rather, that can serve. And I think, okay, if you're going to get caught up in the whole, like, I don't like being contradicted by critics, it's like, well,
it's going to happen.
You're missing the point there, pal.
But I was just like, even though I have my own strong personal opinions, and sometimes I will disagree with the critic, there's 3 critics that have changed my mind on movies, I guess, or episodes. There's Nostalgic Critic. He changed my opinion on a movie at one point. Then there's Siskel and Ebert that also did it with a movie. And then there's you with an episode.
Which one?
I will not tell you.
Okay, how about which one did Siskel and Ebert or Nostalgic Critic change their minds on?
Nostalgic Critics was, I guess, the Batman and Robin, because like that is one of my favorite. I guess what is that called?
Superhero?
No, like where it's like for fun. I watch it.
Camp movies.
Yeah, like this is a good movie to watch for having fun. And Siskel and Ebert was the Godzilla stuff. Because they were like, why, if you have us in the movie, why don't kill us and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, it actually makes it go down for me a little bit.
Yeah, it's like Siskel and Ebert. I love that. Like, if you're going to be petty, at least be good at it.
Yeah.
So, but that happens too sometimes. Like sometimes you read a critic's review or see a critic's review and they'll point out something that you didn't necessarily think about, and it's like, and okay, maybe sometimes it'll be like, well, actually, if I had noticed that, then okay, I'd rather, like, that does make it go down for me. I'd rather have a movie that doesn't have that problem, or heck, maybe you'll be like, okay, I agree with them, but I still feel like I like it anyway, so okay, what is it about this movie that sort of overpowers that for me? And then you have to learn a little bit more about your tastes, and you see that's what criticism is good for. If this is a subject you really like, or if this is something you really like and you're really interested in, then okay, it can be a way for you to help. It can be a way to help you explore your tastes. It can be a way to help you find more things you like, gravitate towards things you might like more. And if it's just like hot dogs for you, that like you eat it, you forget about it, and you almost always like it well enough, then okay, why are you even here talking about this with us? Like you.
That's true.
You wouldn't be reading reviews anyway, because it wouldn't matter. You just like everything. So,
but we can agree fully on that she's representing a very, very bad critic. She's not moving. She doesn't learn anything. She's not like Anton Ego. He actually, tastes the food, even though that he gives it a bad grade and stuff like that. But he tries at least. She doesn't even try.
It seems like part of the thing is he's just become like jaded, whereas she seems to like get up. No, everybody should be like in my narrow field of vision on what's good. And I mean, there are bad critics like that. Where I think this episode goes wrong is I don't think at all they're trying to present her as a bad example of critics, because they don't offer any counterpoints, and in fact they try to their counter arguments to her are sort of against the concept itself. Like, oh well, no pony has the right to tell these ponies what to think. So I think that she was just supposed to be a critic, and that's where I think okay,
but
you fail your straw manning.
It would have been like more interesting if she was the health inspector, and after they cleaned up the place and made it nice so it looked like the other restaurants, she would maybe be more open and willing to taste the food, because it was more clean and stuff like that. And when they served the food, she would be like, okay, this is you need to have this and all of this stuff, because they have the Gordon Ramsay pony later on. So I'm like thinking, if he was taking, he could have taken the reins instead and going out in the kitchen and being like, okay, if you want to have better food, maybe they were just lucky with Rarity and Pinkie Pie serving them nice, fresh, prepared food, right? And the rest in the kitchen was subpar, or I will not say rotten, but you get my drift, right? And she maybe being a counter wise to Gordon Ramsay, him helping them, and she being like, oh, nothing they do is good enough, kinda. So they have like these two critics, one that is trying to help and one that is, you can't help.
A health inspector is not a critic per se. Health is a little more
is a
objective,
little bit
but I mean,
more severe.
the-
Yeah, I know.
all the stuff that, well, objective, like it's not a matter of taste, it's a matter of fact, of standard. But I mean, yeah, what you're talking about sounds like, yeah, an entirely different episode. Like, okay, when you have what it takes, but you're forgetting a key, part
so
of the
it
point.
could be almost like an episode with Gordon Ramsay going out
actually,
to the restaurant.
and that sounds better than the episode we got for sure.
Yeah, but I still like it. I still feel like it has some resemblance to Ratatouille, even though that it's better. And I also feel like it has resemblance to Hell's Kitchen and all of this with Gordon Ramsay going to the restaurants and helping them and stuff like that. So I'm guessing like I'm just more open to the stuff. I also like the song.
The song's alright. It does recycle
nice.
animation, but yeah. But yeah, okay, like, but just resemblance doesn't cut it for me. Like, if you want me to think you're better than just alright, then okay, maybe you have to, instead of just resembling, like, yeah, really nail some of the same appeal, something like that. So, yeah. Okay, well, I might be getting hungry myself right now, so that might be a good place to cut it off.
It's almost dinner time, so
Alright.
we'll be off for our pizza.
Alright.
Bye.
So long.